Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Four Female Founders podcast series, where we're helping women in business learn how to thrive, not just survive. I'm your host, Sarah Bundy, and today I have an amazing guest with me. Her name is Shara Ruffin, and she is the founder and CEO of a consulting company called Journey to Licensure. Shara is an independently licensed clinical social worker and former psychotherapist from Philadelphia. Her company combines wellness, clinical supervision, and professional development coaching to support social workers through licensure examinations. Shara's company, Journey to Licensure, was featured in Business Insider, Success Magazine, and USA Today. Shara is also a 5 times best-selling Amazon author of a journal called 90 Days of Prayer and a LinkedIn advisor, top voice on social work, and was most recently awarded the Silver Stevie American Business Award for Thought Leader of the Year for Consumer Services in America. Shara, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate just being here and excited.
It's so amazing to hear all that you have accomplished and all of your accolades. It must have taken many years to get to where you're at. And I appreciate you being on the show because today we're actually going to talk about what happens behind the scenes of a successful entrepreneur and hear a little bit more about your journey, where you started, where you have come, and some of the challenges that have occurred along the way, how you've overcome them, and kind of what happens in the day-to-day as well. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you got started on your entrepreneurial journey.
Sure, I would love to. So that journey started, I would say January 2021 is when it officially kicked off. I opened up a clubhouse room after passing my board exam. It originally was a pain point for me as a social worker. I had to pass a clinical board exam in Pennsylvania. It took 10 years to get there. This license only takes 2 years to get. It took me a decade because of life. And I talked about that journey on LinkedIn. Well, when I failed the exam in November 2019, I had about 30,000 connections at the time, and that's like telling a small stadium, like, "Hey, you're going to pass," and then you don't, and then you're telling everybody. It was a lot. And when I failed, I spent a whole year doing video every day of just how I was going to try to get back to getting to the exam, but it was a whirlwind because right after I failed the exam in November 2019, March 2020 comes around when I was going to retest, everything shuts down. I now don't have a part-time job because I lost my part-time job after kind of retiring from being a therapist. I wanted a less stressed job while I studied. That didn't happen. Lost that job a week before the pandemic started in Philadelphia. And then after that, I ended up being depressed for about 8 or 9 months because I didn't have medical insurance. I didn't have any type of a lot of support. I had 3 kids at home. So I mostly focused on them. And if I wasn't focused on them, I was doing a lot of work around just mindset, praying every day. Didn't even crack open a book because I was pretty broken, not only financially, but in mindset. I had missed my passing score by 2 points. I needed 102. I got 100. And I was after 4 hours. It was devastating for me because of how many years it took to get there. I did find my way back to the exam, passing exactly 2 days, exactly 1 year later to the date that I failed it and did pass. And sharing the experience on LinkedIn, it ended up blowing up to over 100,000 views. Then after that, I decided to say, hey, does anyone have this plain point? Got on Clubhouse, started doing a study room for about 6 months. People started passing their board exams, and I did this daily, every day. And mind you, I wasn't working a job. I was just like, I really like doing this. And I kept doing it for about 6 months. And then I was told, hey, by a mentor, you need to go ahead and turn this into business. I was like, why? This is just something I'm enjoying doing. It's like, are your bills being paid? Not really. I just like, you have children to feed? Yes. I think you need to look at the fact that you're pivoting in a different direction and it's okay to charge what you're worth. Within a month of having that conversation with my mentor at the time, his name was Eric Reed, who became my future publisher. I ended up making $10,000 the following month. That $10,000 in July 2021 turned into 6 months of 125K within a 7 month of paid services. And it blew up overnight. I won't say overnight, but in 3 years, it's now valued at 500,000 valuation of a company that I built from just story and a pain point, building a community. A lot of work, a lot of time. 3 years later, I'm still here doing the work of helping my colleagues pass their board exams and helping them reach their best potential of what they want to do in the field or non-traditionally out of the field. So that's a little bit of the journey in that regard. I feel like you pretty much said everything in my intro of the accomplishments, but getting there was hard. I experienced growth financially very fast, building, not having investment. Whatever money I made was going back into the business. But on the personal side, I was um, burning out. My first year did really, really well. Second year, another $100,000. But in that, the revenue came a stress, came life happening. My brother got killed in my second year of life happening with my business. Everything was flourishing. He gets killed. He was 18, 6 blocks away from my house. Then my stepfather ended up having lung cancer. We caught it early, but then he started having seizures to find out that the lung cancer metastasized to his brain, what we call brain meta. He ended up with 2 tumors and kept having seizures, seizure after seizure. He had one brain surgery, went well. They found 3 more tumors, had a second surgery, and now he's learning how to walk again. He
Wow.
is cancer free. Well, he still has cancer in his brain, but it's controlled pretty well. Um, and he's now learning how to walk and becoming mobile again, which is only by God's grace, but a lot of stress on my family and having to hold them. Um, I'm the go-to person, so they're always coming to me. And I ended up last year in the hospital in the ER several times because I kept having panic attacks. Everything on the outside, LinkedIn, all of the accolades and stuff was happening, but I was literally behind the scenes losing it, mostly because I hadn't had taken the time to breathe,
Mhm.
taking the time to I hadn't been on vacation since 2022, and even that was a work vacation, so not really taking the time to enjoy the fruits of my labor, but constantly looking at what's the next thing I need to do, what is that I need to build, um, and also helping my family through their own process. It took its toll. So I shared a lot of that even on LinkedIn and a lot of other platforms, that what you see on someone's shiny profile is not even a mere touch of what their real story is. It's just what it is. But I'll pause it there just for a second. I know I said a lot. So
No, that was super helpful and insightful. And it's interesting. We see all these really successful people building these successful companies and forget two things. One, that they're human beings, right? And two, that they have struggles behind the scenes. And, with what you just shared, there's been a lot of struggle. There have been traumas, there's been burnout, there's been fear, there's been failure. And, me too. I've had, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, I've had also burnout. I've also suffered panic attacks. I've had to take forced breaks at times. I've had losses too. What's important about this conversation is I know we are not alone, right? We are not alone. For all of the people out there who are trying to grow their companies, trying to lead companies and be good leaders, they get to put on this face to say, you know what, everything's cool. I'm a strong leader. I've got it together. And sometimes behind the scenes, they're hurting really badly, and there isn't anybody there to help them out or pick them up. So I think it's really important that we do have these conversations because they're real, and it is reality of being an entrepreneur, a founder, an investor sometimes in your own business. When you're doubling down, you're raising a family. But being able to talk about it and sometimes take breaks, sometimes get help, and sometimes force yourself to pause, right? And say, okay, I need a minute to catch my breath, or I need a minute to regroup.
yeah, I think that's important. And I think that's the space that I'm at. We were having a prior conversation before we aired the episode. That I needed to take a pause. Even now, with everything happening so as fast as it's happening, um, pauses are needed in order for me to just ground myself and know that it's okay to slow down, um, and take a breather where I need to, and rely on my team, and allow them to do what they do best in order for me to succeed. So delegation is very important, but it's something I've had to constantly fight with and learn as an entrepreneur. to lean on others and be okay with leaning on them and not just leaning on them. Um, it's an important conversation to have.
Yes, and that's also why it's so important to hire great people who are value aligned, who you can trust, because you're going to need to lean on them, right? If you're going to scale and you're going to grow, you got to get the right people who've got your back and can run with it sometimes. One of the things that we were chatting about before this recording was what it's like trying to build a business. Similar analogy to flying a plane while you're building it. So you're captaining the plane, you're flying it, and you're building it all in the same go. I've experienced that in the earlier days with AIM. When we sometimes had to level up, we hit a certain size in AIM. Sometimes you have to do that again, right? So you're sometimes replacing systems. You're sometimes replacing people who have turned over, and it's hard to do that. It's hard to fly a plane while you're building it. But how do you manage that? Do you find it's the biggest part of the challenge behind the scenes, or is there something else that is harder in your experience?
I feel like you pretty much summed it up. That's kind of where I'm at. Having, I'm juggling. There's social media stuff. There's building pieces to streamline my business. There's training people. There is streamlining the pieces that I don't need to be a part of anymore, to make sure it's seamless so I can put my energy back into where it belongs. There are so many moving parts. That's where my challenge is right now. But what I'm finding that's helpful is being able to keep telling myself it's okay. Rome wasn't built in a day. Do a
Right.
little bit at a time so you can allocate time to other things, but just do it in a way that's going to work for you. And then for me, it has been meaning going to bed earlier, getting up earlier to get those pieces done so I can get through the rest of my day, from an operational point of view.
Thanks to CJ for sponsoring this episode of the For Female Founders podcast series and for supporting our mission to help, mentor, and elevate women in business. You also mentioned earlier, and to me on a prior call, that you have mentors, you have people that you work with who help coach you, lead you, hold you accountable. Can you tell me a little bit about your mentor and why you have a mentor and what kind of
Oh,
stuff you work on
yes, I
with your
have.
mentor?
Her name is Lorena Acosta. She has over 1 million followers on LinkedIn. She is my number one. She's been a big cheerleader for me in terms of what I do, not only on LinkedIn, but in brand building. She's been a big cheerleader for me. She's a personal brand strategist. She's been in my corner for quite some time. There is Vincent Sang, who is my other business coach. He had helped me in a place when I was almost went broke almost 2 years ago, and he was able to help me turn around my revenue, doubling the revenue within a year. So those people have been in my corner. It's so important to find people that not only you can trust, but have different skills. Having not everybody's good at everything. So finding someone that's good. I have another friend of mine who does she monitors my TikTok. She's one of my moderators because I can't watch the chat and still do a live and teach at the same time. So having various people that have different gifts, but allowing them to be in their gifts instead of you having to run that, allowing them to do that. It has been a big part of the load off for me at this point.
Can you tell us a little bit about what your day looks like? I mean, you have 3 kids, you run your social channels, you do group
Mm-hmm.
coaching, you're building a course for people, you're mentoring people yourself. And by the way, I saw an amazing testimonial from one of your clients who just recently passed his exams
Mm-hmm.
with your help. So congratulations to him and to
Thank
you.
you.
But tell us, like, what does a typical day in the life of Shara look like?
Typical day. This might be one of them. Um, Usually I am in session, usually from about to about 9 to 9 at night, sometimes back to back, not all days, most days, but I do take days off. Friday and Sunday are mine. They're untouchable, especially for family. But then in about another 2 hours, my kids will be coming in. Two of them left to go out. They're teenagers now, but and they're homeschooled. But my youngest, my 9-year-old, oh boy, he'll come in and want my attention, want to play a game, and I take breaks. I'll go hang with him for about an hour or so, until Papa gets home and keeps them busy while I go back to working. Early morning, I'm usually right now 5, 6 in the morning. I'm getting up, praying, trying to get a little bit of exercise, and trying to slowly get back into this exercise thing. It's a struggle bus.
Good for
Um,
you. I'm trying to.
But one of the changes I did make, which has been a godsend, is I don't cook for myself anymore because I just don't have that time. And this is definitely something I would bring up because I remember when I couldn't even fathom someone else cooking for myself. This was something I knew I needed to invest in because I want to let me focus on generating the income. Who can I delegate to get these things off my plate and off my partner's plate? Instead of him cooking late nights, he could just pop something in the fridge to give it to the kids. All he needs to do is pick up the food from the private chef and bring it home, or the private chef will come and drop it off. That's a
Right.
blessing. Because for many years, it was a lot of us juggling, spending most of our time, energy, not raising kids and having to cook. And now I'm running a business that's doing pretty well. And I'm like, you know what? It's okay to let that go. The last two, we've only had her for about 2, 3 weeks now.
Mhm.
Sundays are no longer geared towards prepping for food. Now it's just like, okay, what's on the menu? And let's go. Um, Delegation has definitely shown me the importance of putting my energy where it really belongs. And if, money talks, if I can pay somebody to go do that, why not? Just go do it because I can't. Um, that's the beauty for me of where I'm at right now. That's the fruit of my labor, being able to delegate those things so I don't have to do them. And let me focus on not just bringing in money, but let me focus on purpose. Let me focus on passion. Let me focus on growing. It's a beautiful place to be, but getting there was a train wreck.
And
Yes.
that's I think the secret behind all of these successful entrepreneurs is like, what is this train wreck that we're talking about, and why does it feel like it has? Why is it a train wreck? It's so hard, guys. Like for anyone listening who's in it up to their eyeballs and feeling like they're drowning, we get it. We've been there too. And I guess that would be sort of the question is, at what point can you even delegate personal stuff versus delegating professional stuff? Because if you're trying to manage everything, it does lead to burnout, and it does lead to mistakes, and it does lead to people throwing in the towel because they can't do it any further. And that's why I feel like a lot of people, give up, or a lot of businesses fail because they're too far in the weeds, and then they just stop. They can't do it anymore. So, at what point when looking back, would you have hired a cook sooner, like a chef sooner, to just get that off your plate? Like at what point do we know when to start investing in the things that is not producing the results we want?
I think as soon as you realize it's happening, I wish I would have done that earlier, but I think it also had to be a growth point for me to get to that point of knowing that I needed to invest in one of the things that is a pain point, which right now it's not no longer dinner, it's email marketing, which I'm hiring somebody else for. It's just important to be able to realize early on, which I know you can relate to, things that you just don't have time for, don't want to do, and who you
Mhm.
can pay to do it for you. That's their thing. They love doing it.
Right.
Um, I love cooking, but I also felt guilty at first about hiring someone to do it for me because I was like, I'm supposed to be the one feeding my kids. I'm supposed to be one going to the farmer's market to get the things for my lovely fur fur babies, my guinea pigs. But I don't have the time. Where I need to focus my energy is where it belongs. And and we only have so many hours in the day. So for me, learning how, and I'm still learning that. This is not something I've mastered. It changes. So I would highly suggest as soon as you recognize, even if you don't have the money yet, which is fine because I did not when I started my business. It wasn't only until I think I was 3 years in to realize that this was something I really needed to let go of. And it's been a blessing to do that. But starting small, as you start building, what are the things that you need to delegate early that you don't need to do or you don't have time for? Um, I just think it's important to do that early. I wish I would have did it sooner, but this is where I'm at.
Mhm. And okay, so two things that I want to add to that. I decided I did not want to spend my weekends cleaning my house anymore. And so I hired someone to clean my house every week. It's been great. And it supports her business. So it's like, yeah, we feel guilty sometimes, or like we kind of redirect where we want to spend our time and energy and attention. I now spend that time going to the park with my kids or go for a bike ride, or I might go to the gym, right? Instead of spending 4 hours cleaning a house. And she's so grateful because that's how she supports her family, right? So I think it's important for us to realize that we can do those things and it's okay to do those things. We don't have to do everything. But if we're at a beginning stage where, let's say, we can't afford to hire a chef, you could actually do a swap with a neighbor or some friends, right? So maybe one week you guys make bulk meals, deliver it, and the next week they make bulk meals and deliver it. So as you're kind of working your way up and earning
Oh yeah.
money,
I
but
mean, back then, well, I'm saying back then, it seems like yesterday, but when I first started, I would freeze bunk Pinterest was my best buddy. I would go on there and look up crock pot recipes or things that I could make quick that were preppable, and me and my partner would go through every week. We would make two big pots of something, especially during the summer, or cold cuts or sandwiches and stuff. We would prep those
Mhm,
things early enough. The more busier I got, the more he got busy, the less we were able to do it. But I think it's important, even if you don't have the money, to start thinking about what are ways that, and you can even ask AI, hey Pi or
mhm,
ChatGPT, what are some ideas that I can do to help alleviate, using technology is a beautiful thing.
mhm,
To If you can't come up with them ideas, we have the technology that you can. So it's just a matter of, being creative and figuring out how can I make this happen. So it's not so much that I can't, it's the how.
mhm. Knowing what you know now, I'm curious. I mean, you and I have both suffered from burnout from just going. Go, go, go. We have to be responsible for everything. And there
Hmm.
is no down day. You skip your vacation days, you skip your weekends. For those of you who don't know, I had a 5-day maternity leave after my daughter was born. And then I was back at the office working 70 to 90-hour weeks. I'd
Oh
sleep
my
like
God.
4 hours. I would burst into tears all in those beginning years. Like, you're trying to figure out how to be a good mom, take care of yourself, be a good wife, how to like make your business work and grow and sustain. I almost went bankrupt 3 times or like lost my house. Like you go through these crazy things, right? Until finally one day you hit a certain point because you didn't give up and then it kind of takes off and that feels great. But then you also have to kind of keep going with that momentum, right? And then you
Hmm.
risk burning out again. You risk not having those days off and not focusing on the things that make you most happy because you're running with it, which is cool. But a lot of people, I think, can relate to this. So, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently to not burn out? And actually, as a former psychotherapist, what would you advise your clients to do so they don't burn out?
Oh, it's funny. My my colleagues, we are the worst when it comes to self care. We will care for everybody else but ourselves. And social workers are definitely worse at not very good at that. Um, I constantly use myself as a vehicle of being able to put myself in their shoes, especially if they're juggling a lot, they're taking care of their family, they're worried about their career projection, they're worried about the future. I put myself back, even though I'm not emotionally in that place that they were, it just looks differently. So I'm always challenging them to remember that it's a moment in time that it will pass. When it comes to self care, you're going to go through those moments where your coping mechanisms change. Your coping ability does change as you go through different life experiences, normal crises, um, as well as crises are that may throw you off course. So I want to say that self care may not be a bubbly bath. It may just mean taking a few minutes in the morning to take a couple deep breaths before you talk to your partner. It may mean prayer. It may mean doing affirmations. It may mean Just taking an hour to yourself. Um, you got to figure out what that looks like to you. Self-care is going to look different for everyone, but I would say it's pivotal to realize that sometimes you got to get outside and smell the roses. Like, I'm somebody that's a big hermit. I'm always in the house now compared to what I used to be like because of the pandemic. And I have to remind myself, Shar, it's nice outside. Take a break, go outside, get some air, even if it's just for a few minutes. Um, those things are important to me because I know it keeps me from losing my mind. So,
It's funny. Sorry,
mhm.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm good.
I was going to say yesterday, and I won't say who or where, but there's a Starbucks sort of close to my house, and I go there frequently. And the manager in there always looks so chipper and greets me by name and is always smiling. And yesterday I went in and he was sitting at a table with his computer laptop, and he just looked like the energy seemed really off. I grabbed my coffee, and as I was leaving, I waved at him, and he waved at me. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "No, like, I don't think I'm okay." And I said, "Do you want me to come
Yeah.
join you and sit with you?" And I went and sat with him, and he just had a moment. He was having a moment, and he needed someone to listen and to vent to. And I said, "You know what? Like, it's a beautiful day. Look at the garden across the street. Like, why don't you go for a walk around the block?" Anyway, he felt so much better. He got up. We gave each other a big hug, and yeah, I mean, even people, and especially people who are focused on serving others, right? Those service
Hmm.
oriented people who are in service industries, they give so much. And then they find themselves empty at the end of the day, or these moments where they just can't find the energy to keep going. So taking that little break, stepping outside, literally smelling the roses, I think is a great way to just kind of refocus yourself and give yourself that little boost of energy throughout the weeks and the months.
I honestly, I'm right there with you. It's important. I'm actually looking at ways now, like, oh, summer's time coming. Usually it's a little bit slower, sometimes not. But I was like, you know what? Let me plan something for me and the kids to go to the beach or do something. My son will be turning 10 next month, which I can't believe I'm saying 10 of anything. You keep saying, Mommy, I'm a preteen. I'm a preteen. I was like, I don't hear it. Um, he's growing up. He's like almost 4 feet now. It's so funny. It goes so fast. I remember
Mm,
just holding him, and every year I'm reminded that time waits for no one, and that's something else that's important. You can make more money. You can build another business. The thing that you can't get back is time. Once it's gone, it is gone. Um, it's important to prioritize it and not only prioritize it, but prioritize yourself. And as a mom, you know that our children go, when you become a parent, you realize how fast time actually goes and how precious it is because you're raising a human being that in a blink of an eye, they become an adult. And you're like, where did it go? And that's life, isn't it? So if I can leave anyone out there that's listening to this podcast, know that it's whether um, whether it's life, business, personal, it's a journey. It's not always going to look pretty, nor should it. Sometimes we got to go through the ugly to get to the good part, and just hang in there for the ride.
I love it, Shara. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We are out of time, but we love your perspective. We love your honesty and transparency in the discussion around what it is like behind the scenes, being an entrepreneur, being successful, and that we all are kind of just on our journeys and making our way through. So thank you for being with us today. And if anyone wants to contact you, what's the best way to reach you?
Any social media channel that you live on, my website is currently being rebuilt, so thank God. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Clubhouse, every platform that's out there now. So yeah,
And
you
what's
can
your
find
handle?
me.
Just there you go. So Shara Ruffin, thank you so much. Loved having you, and wishing you all the best.
Thank you. Love being
Thanks,
here.
guys. Thanks for listening to the Four Female Founders podcast series. If you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe, like, or comment below. so we can continue to support women in business by helping them thrive, not just survive. We'll see you on the next show.